and welcome to the Alpine Valley School podcast. This is your host, Missa Gallivan, a former AVS student, graduate, and a current staff member at the school. For many, day-to-day life at a school like ours is hard to imagine. What do students actually do all day? How do they pursue their interests in real time? As I and my guests have previously mentioned on other shows, every student's day is different. As different, in fact, as the kids themselves. Some choose to spend time alone, drawing, reading, listening to music, or exploring other more isolated pursuits for much of the day, while others are drawn to social activities. There's almost always a game of dodgeball, tag, or the ever-popular asteroid game unfolding somewhere. More about the asteroid game in an upcoming episode. It's hard to say exactly what each student does all day, except in a few cases. Although many people find it hard to believe, there's actually a lot of structure at Alpine Valley School, and there are aspects of the day which are compulsory. One of the activities students must participate in is chores. Twice a week, students sign up for a chore, a basic cleaning task completed either inside or outside the school building. For an older student, this chore might consist of vacuuming one half of the theater or the main room, while a younger student might be asked to wipe down the tables in the meeting room. These chores are compulsory and must be completed by a certain time of day to the satisfaction of the chore checker. The chore checker is a trained agent, typically a student, who ensures chores are completed to a satisfactory level. And, in case you were wondering, staff do chores as well. We take out the trash, clean the bathrooms, and generally do the chores that, if we force them onto the students, would cause a riot. The other aspect of life at AVS that is not optional is Judicial Committee. Much has already been said about JC on this podcast, plus we have some great videos on YouTube on the subject if you want to see what it actually looks like in real life. But for the purposes of clarity, let me spell it out here. Judicial Committee is how disputes between school meeting members are resolved and how the school's laws are enforced. All students and staff are required to serve on Judicial Committee as voting members, similar to jury duty, and must fairly adjudicate all cases brought before them. When a student is summoned to Judicial Committee, whether as a complainant, alleged violator, or a witness, they are compelled to attend. To make these interruptions easier to predict, Judicial Committee is always held at the same time of day, and the school meeting members can always find out beforehand if they are needed for a case or if it is their week to serve as a voting member. That being said, aside from those aspects, and other school government that students choose to participate in, the day is theirs. To hear how one currently enrolled student is spending his time, I've asked Alder Bloomfield, a 10-year-old student at AVS, and his mom, Stacey, to come on the show today and share their family's story. Here's our interview. Alder and Stacey, thanks for being on the show.
You're welcome.
So if you don't mind, would you each introduce yourselves and give our listeners some idea of your history with Alpine Valley School? Alder, you can start if you want.
I'm Alder Bloomfield, and I've been going to the school for around 3.5 years now, and I'm excited to come back next year, but I think it's a great place to be.
That's great. And how old are you, Alder?
10.
Great. And Stacey, how about you?
I'm Stacey Bloomfield. I'm Alder's mom. Like Alder said, he's been going to school, I don't know if it's 3.5 or most of 3 years. We definitely thought about Alpine Valley a bunch of times before we actually committed to it. I think we visited 2 or 3 other times from the time he was 5 till the time we switched schools.
Thank you. My first question actually is for Alder, which is, what are some of the interests that you're pursuing while you're at school right now? Like things you were doing, I know you're not at school right now because it's summer, but things you were doing kind of at the end of last year.
I was doing blacksmithing, programming, and now it's fun, but our forge broke down, so we have to make a new one. And I'm also working in programming, as I mentioned, and that's going so-so. It's a little more complicated than I was expecting, but it's fun. And that's basically what I've been doing lately, and before the summer.
Oh, that's wonderful. Those are pretty big undertakings.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
So, Stacey, I'm curious what sort of things at the end of the day that you and Alder's dad hear when he comes home. So is it like the "how was school? Fine" sort of conversation that we parents have come to expect, or is it a little different than that?
It's different than that. I mean, sometimes I ask him what he did, but he got pretty sick of that after a few weeks of the beginning of the year. So now we just sort of talk about whatever, and his day just pops up in conversation over the evening. I don't push it because as much as I wish I could know everything that goes on, I know I can't. And if I ask, I get less information and less stories, which is really what I want anyway. And when the stories come naturally, they're much more interesting.
And so you just kind of have to let it unfold naturally?
Yeah, I have to couch myself from begging for information.
Yeah, that drives me crazy.
I bet. Stacey, for you, how was the first couple of weeks after enrolling at AVS? What was your experience when Alder first started?
Well, I think we were coming from a different place than a lot of families in that we had experienced both unschooling and public school. So we knew we were done with public school. But as an unschooling family, we weren't 100% sure we were ready to let go of Alder. So I was a little sad, but I trusted you guys, which was something that never happened when he was in public school. I think I was mainly bored because we were no longer spending every day together doing the sorts of stuff he was doing at Alpine Valley, and I had to figure out what to do with myself more than anything.
That's interesting.
Yeah, the first week was really me trying to get in touch with people, and they were all like, "Oh, hi." I'm like, "Oh, hi."
So did you find that you were able to connect with people at school, Alder?
Yeah, it took me about 3 weeks or so to really get in touch with the way things work, but after that, everything went out smoothly and everything was great.
Oh, good. And do you think that was because it was just so different? Like everybody was kind of doing their own thing?
Yeah, I think I just had to get used to the surroundings and everything that's new.
He told me after his first day, all he did was walk in circles and look in rooms, and that was about it.
Yeah, I spent 5 hours just walking in circles. Okay, that's that room. That's that room. And that's that room.
Sure, just trying to get a sense of everything, right? It sounds like.
Yeah.
And definitely during I think up to the first winter holidays, he still took a day off each week, and we still spend a lot of time together. But once he came home for Christmas, and then he was so ready to go back, and other than a few exciting activities we have, he hasn't really asked just to stay home since then, and that was years ago at this point.
Yeah, that was like, oh wow, I don't even remember taking that many days off. Wow.
Yeah, well, it can take some time to acclimate, right? I mean, it's not necessarily an easy place to be because there's nobody telling you what to do.
But I think I got really used to surroundings after a bit, and I feel like it's the really good place to be. I'm not leaving.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. What do you remember about your first experience with Judicial Committee?
I was a witness of David doing something to Neil, and I had no idea who they were, and like, who are they? And they're like, those person. I'm like, I don't know. So, and then my first time getting written up was me, Andrea, Toby, and Isaac had left a pens and blocks, and we just had the sentence to not use them. So I was like, okay.
So you didn't get the book thrown at you exactly.
It felt okay to have to do something because I left them out. I think it's a good system.
Yeah. Were you intimidated the first time you had to go to JC? Especially when you were written up?
Honestly, not really. I mean, it didn't feel weird to get written up. It felt natural.
Stacey, do you remember what drew you to Alpine Valley School in the first place? How you heard about it?
So my history with alternative education goes back to almost 20 years. I was working in a different kind of school, but I had interviewed I forgot his name, who started the Albany Free School. as part of my master's program. And when we had Alder, we had decided we were going to unschool him. So between Kevin also has taught at alternative schools, but between my work in alternative education, which promptly stopped at No Child Left Behind, and our decision to unschool, when we decided Alder staying home with me was not the right thing for either of us, it seemed like the natural fit. Because of Alder's experience when he was in the public school, we don't even look at Alpine Valley as a school, actually, but as a community. And I think it was only like halfway through last year he let me use the word school at all. He just kind of thinks of it as going someplace else to unschool.
Yeah, mostly at least.
So like a second family?
Yeah, a second family is what it is to me, actually.
That's really nice. So Stacey, I think it sounds like you were already unschooling. You had a really good understanding of kind of our philosophy at Alpine Valley and everything. And has it been different in practice than you thought it would be, sort of philosophically?
No, I mean, there's that, idealistic parenting side where you wrestle with your own child's choices. And I don't mean like that he's a bad kid or anything, but, everyone always takes the pretty pictures of the kids not on their computers quite as much. So I have to get used to the amount of computer time, but I think that's just a generational thing at this point. But really, when we started, my only goal for him was that he was going to be able to advocate for himself, because that was something that he had had a hard time for beforehand.
And do you see that that's changed or that's been different at all?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It's not always an easy thing.
Yeah. It's the happiest place I've ever been. I mean, unschooling was okay at home, but it was quite boring, actually, and I was just kind of like, I'm bored. But here, not so bored. There's more people I can hang out with. There's a much wider variety of types of people that I can just be like, I want to hang out with that person.
Well, that's really good to hear. Stacey, do you have a favorite thing about Alpine Valley School? Favorite aspect of the school?
Probably the mixed age groups, especially for Alder, who's never liked kids his own age exclusively, and pretty much usually it's nice that he can be around older kids who he's free to talk to or do activities with, and then also younger kids that he can, switch up and hang out with them and not really have only 10-and-a-half-year-olds to be with.
Alder, was there an aspect of life at school that surprised you after you enrolled?
The fact that I was actually free to do whatever I wanted. Well, not whatever, but I was free to, choose what I was able to do. I was like, I can just go and do that? No way. So that was great.
That's good. You learned it was really real. So you've seen a couple of people now, and sorry, this is to Alder, go through the graduation process. And I'm curious what you think about that process.
I think it's amazing, and I'm excited for it. I think it looks fun, to be honest. They're always pretty funny, at least, and I think they're definitely a way to prove yourself worthy to graduate, like the defense process.
Stacey, how about you? I think you actually were involved in the diploma process this last year, right?
Yeah, I was on a panel. I think it was really interesting to see how I'm on FA's panel now, and I was on Carlos's panel, but it was really interesting to watch. As an ex-teacher, I had to learn to not to sort of say, well, aren't you supposed to be doing this? So for me, it was sort of a deschooling process of trying to step back. But I like the idea that they look at everything they've done in the lens of where they're going to go in the future.
Yeah. Alder, do you have any advice for new students? Things that you would say to kids that are just still figuring things out?
I would say make sure you don't get down the first, few months, because the first few months are a little hard. Nobody actually knows you yet. You want to make a few friends so that they can help you out in, JC or how things are going, and, they can help you out with how the policies are and the law book. It's just a good idea to get to know people, in my opinion. Also, just have fun. Fun is good. Fun is very good.
So, Stacey, same question for you, but with new parents. Is there any advice that you would give to parents that are, have just discovered this and just taken that chance and maybe not feel too sure about it yet?
I think there are three things. One, watch as many YouTube videos from all different sorts of Sudbury schools and watch graduations and interviews with people. And the other, and this might be personal to me, is just write down what you're thinking and feeling so that you can get it out of your brain and you're not going in circles. Again, with my experience in education and unschooling Alder for majority of his life, It wasn't that much of a leap, but I have explained it to some people, even though I just said leap, I have explained it to some people, sort of like walking onto the invisible bridge in Indiana Jones. You know it's there, you know it works. You just have to, taking that first step and saying, oh, wait, I'm here. Once you step on the bridge, it's really actually there.
Yeah.
Feels a lot better.
Yeah, the bridge is just kind of camouflaged with everything I've noticed, actually.
Yeah, but sometimes when you look back, you can see it very clearly. You're like, oh, there it was. It was right there the whole time.
Yeah, and that's what I've enjoyed about going back and reading what I've written, is that you can say, oh, I saw this and I didn't understand it, but now there are these pieces. And I think being able to do that sooner rather than waiting until the whole thing makes sense. But also, kids just plateau often, and you're going to see that whether it's in school and they're struggling or at Alpine Valley where they just do the same thing until you think they're never going to do anything else, and then suddenly that's when something happens. At least for us it does.
Yeah. I think that this is, for parents, just give it a while. Your kids might not adjust to it immediately. You're definitely not going to, because you've been used to something else your entire life, unless they're 5. And let it sink into your kid and let it sink in for you. Sinking in is just wonderful for it. It's the only way to truly get used to anything.
I think the one other thing to remember is that this isn't an alternative school where, it's not making the same thing. It's not saying, oh, we're going to use these different ideas to get to the same graduation point. That's not the goal here. The goal is a whole human, which obviously as someone who works there, but to remember that it's an alternative way to be part of life, as opposed to an alternative way to get to high school, senior graduation, ready for college or whatever you were doing next.
Right. That's a great point. So, Alder, I'm curious if you have a favorite memory about AVS.
I don't actually know. I don't know. It might have been the first time. It might have been when I saw Isaac for the first time, and he was like, oh, hi. And I'm like, oh, hi, Isaac. And he's like, how do you know my name? I'm like, oh, I'm Alder. And he's like, and that was really funny. I'm like, okay. And I laughed so hard. It was amazing.
Do you want to explain to Missa why this is funny?
Because I've known Isaac since I was around 3.
Wow. That's pretty great. Stacey, how about you? Do you have a favorite memory associated with the school?
Well, part of it is going to the sorry, brain not working. Going to the coffee with the graduates.
Oh, that was really funny.
That was really nice. But also, I like the events where we get to know other parents and stuff. And beyond that, one of the best memories I have is Kay coming up to me. I don't remember what it was. It was the first thing, that event. Maybe it was Halloween, right after we came to school.
Probably.
And she just started talking to me about her experience and letting me talk about our experience, and just having parents who weren't mean.
Yeah.
Or every bit of attention and everything else. And just to have these parents come up to me and say, "Hi, what's your story? Let me tell you mine. Let's see, what fun things are going on." And she still now will come into the bookstore when I'm at work just to say hi if she's in the neighborhood. And it's really nice to have made some friends among the parents.
Well, guys, that's actually all the time we've got today. So I really want to thank you for coming on the show. It was great to talk to you, and it was so good to hear your story. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Have a good summer.
You too.
Yeah, you too. Blacksmithing and programming? I don't know about you, but I don't think I would have tried to tackle those subjects at 10 years old. But those are the things that Alder is interested in and how he's choosing to spend his time. I think it's pretty cool. I also absolutely love how Stacey framed an Alpine Valley School education. It's not another system propelling young people into a high school diploma, but rather another method of producing a whole happy adult. I've never heard it put quite that way before, and I just love it. By the way, I want to remind listeners that if you have an idea for a show, please contact me and share it. You can reach me via email at podcast@alpinevalley.school.com or via any of Alpine Valley School's social media pages, though Facebook is probably the best if you want to send a message that way. The idea for this episode, interviewing a current student and their parent, actually came from a listener. Not only that, but I've got a couple of really exciting episodes coming up that were also listener suggestions. You guys are so creative. So I do listen to your feedback, and I want to hear more of it. Drop me a line and let me know what you'd like to talk about. As always, if you want to support Alpine Valley School and the work we do, you can find out how by visiting our website. Just go to www.alpinevalley.school.com and click the Support Us link in the menu. There you'll find a variety of ways you can help contribute to Alpine Valley School and keep us going strong. Huge gratitude to my guests, Alder and Stacey, and as always to Isaac Eliason for being my audio guru. I'm Missa Gallivan. This is the Alpine Valley School podcast, and we'll be back again in a fortnight with more stories of real learning for real life.